Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation, we're going to see how we go about mitigating the loss of our forest root domain controller. Mitigation is the process that we go through to reduce the risk of having a catastrophic failure and not being able to recover. In this scenario, I have a forest root domain controller, but I have no replica that I can use in the event that my forest root goes down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to configure my DC3 as the replica for my forest root. So we're going to treat this as if my DC3 is just a clean install of Server 2016. I haven't named it DC3. I haven't joined it to the domain. It has no IP4 configuration. Now, prior to making any changes on this machine, I went ahead and did a snapshot of the current configuration in case I need to roll back to this point in time later on. So let's begin by joining this machine to the domain. Now I'm going to try to do as much of this as I can using Server Manager to show you just how easy it is to configure a server just using the management console of Server Manager. So let's go ahead and let's just double click Workgroup. I'm going to click on the change button, and here I'm going to change it from a work group over to a domain. So I've typed in the NetBIOS name of my domain, and I'm now going to just click on OK. But when I try to join the domain, I get this error message here. Now the reason I'm getting this error message is because I have not configured the TCP/IP properties for this machine. So I know that it's just going to be a connectivity issue. Before I can join the domain, I have to tell DC3 where to find the DNS server for this network. So I'm back up inside of my Server Manager, and now I'm going to go down here where it says Ethernet, and I'm going to click on this, and that's going to take me to my adapter. I'm going to the properties. I'm going to click on TCP/IP version 4, and I'm now going to statically configure this adapter. Note how I point the DNS server, the preferred DNS server, over to my DC1. Click OK. I click OK. Close out the network connections. And now I'm back to my Server Manager, and if I do a refresh, you'll note that the IP address is now present for the Ethernet adapter. We can now proceed with joining this machine to the domain and renaming it at the same time. So again, I'm going to go up here where it says Workgroup. I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to click on the Change button. I'm going to select the radio button for domain and type in the NetBIOS name of my domain. Once I have that typed in, I'm just going to say OK. Now I'm presented with the logon screen for my credentials. I'm going to type in my administrator account, and now I'll say OK. I'm now given the Welcome to the Cyber Offense Domain welcome screen. I'll click OK to that. It says you must restart to apply these changes. I'll say OK to that. And I'll go back in and I'll change the name of my computer or my server to DC3. I'll say OK. And again, it wants my administrator account. And I'll say OK to that. It says I must restart. I'll say OK to that. I'll close. I'll restart now. So I'm back up. My DC3 is ready to be logged on to. So I'm going to go to Input, Keyboard, Insert Control-Alt-Delete. And we're going to select Other User. And it tells me that I can sign into Cyber Offense. So I'm going to type in Administrator. Type in my password. I'm currently logged on to DC3. I'm up inside the Server Manager. Let's go to Local Server. And we see that I have renamed the machine. I am currently a member of the Cyber Offense domain. I have a good IP address. Everything's looking pretty good. So we're now ready to install Active Directory. So step one of installing Active Directory is to install the Active Directory domain services first. So to do this, I'm just going to go up here to Manage. I'm going to click on Add Roles and Services. I'm going to say Next, say Next. I only have this one server inside of my server manager, so I can say next. And from here, I'm going to click on where it says Active Directory Domain Services. I'm going to go ahead and add the feature. Now, while I'm up here, I'm going to go ahead and add in the DHCP role as well. Click Next, click Next, 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 Install. So the installation has succeeded. I can now close out the Add Roles and Features wizard. And back at my server manager, I see that I have a message waiting for me up inside of notifications. I'll click on that yellow triangle, and it says I need to complete the DHCP configuration, and I need to promote this server to a domain controller. Let's go ahead and do one at a time. So on this first screen here, I'm going to go ahead and accept the default. Click Next. Now, since this machine does not have Active Directory installed on it, and it's not a domain controller yet, I have to specify. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to type in the administrator account for the domain. And there we go. It punches in the Cyber Offense Administrator information. I'm now going to go ahead and commit. And we're now ready to finish the promotion of this machine to a domain controller. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the notification one more time. And I'm going to click on where it says Promote this server to a domain controller. I'm going to go ahead and change the credentials because the administrator for this machine locally is not going to work. So I'm going to add in administrator for the domain. If you have a hard time seeing those buttons, just go full screen with the wizard and you'll be able to see the next button. Since there's no DNS server or global catalog available currently on this machine, I'm given the option to install both. Now I have to type in my recovery password for Active Directory. We can go ahead and click Next. We can ignore the message about there is no delegation for this DNS server. Click Next. And we're going to replicate from DC1. So where it says replicate from, hold down the window, select your DC1 or whatever the name of your forest root is. Go ahead and click Next. We can go ahead and accept the defaults for the location of the sysvols. Click Next. Now this is a script that has been built that is going to run to promote this machine to a domain controller. Go ahead and click Next. And we are verifying that everything is correct on this machine before it starts. Now all the yellow triangle messages you can ignore. Those aren't important. What is important is this last message down here at the bottom where you get a green check mark. Everything else you don't have to worry about. Go ahead and click Install. All of these notifications that are popping up, you can ignore those. That just has to do with legacy encryption and legacy security from the previous installs or the previous versions of Windows Server. The machine is going to perform an automatic reboot. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, close this out, close out my server manager, and now the machine restarts. So now that the machine is back up and it is promoted to being a domain controller, I can only log on to this machine as the administrator for the domain. So I'm going to type in my domain administrator password. My server's back up, so let's go inside of Tools, and let's go to the Event Viewer, and let's check and see if the replication between DC1 and this machine, DC3, has completed successfully. So once you're up inside of the Event Viewer, you're just going to go to your Applications and Service Logs, and underneath here you're going to find where it says DFS Replication. Now these warning messages, that's just that DC1 and DC3 are getting linked up, starting to sync, so that's a normal message. The one that you're concerned about is this last one, where it talks about the DFS replication service successfully being initialized, and that the sysvol replicated folder has been completed, and there's the path that it shows you. That tells you that this machine is now a replica of DC1. You can close out the Event Viewer. Next, let's go to Tools. Let's go into Directory, Sites, and Services. Give that a minute to boot up. Now here you want to go ahead and expand your sites container. Then you want to go down here to your default first site name, and you want to expand the servers. You'll notice that both servers are in here, DC1 and DC3. That's because they have a connector for replication. So go ahead and expand these here. Now you can right click on your NTDS settings, and you can go and do a check replication topology, and it tells you that the Active Directory Domain Services on Domain Controller DC1 has checked the replication topology and everything's copacetic. Now you're going to have to get used to this here, because this is where you have to troubleshoot your Active Directory replication. So now you can go over here into your DNS settings, and you'll see that you have an automatic replication set up. You can click on this here, and you can see that this replication schedule has been automatically set up when you promoted this machine to a domain controller. Now you can right click on this, and you can say replicate now. And it comes back and it says the Active Directory Domain Services has replicated the connections. So that's how you can tell if your domain controllers are replicating with each other. You can use the sites and services. So far we have built in some redundancy with our Active Directory database by having a replica domain controller, and we have DNS running on this machine. And in just a moment we're going to configure DHCP failover between DC1 and DC3. Right now, if we go up here to Tools and we go into DNS, you'll see that the DNS database has been sent over here. And you can go up here, expand your trusted zones or your forward lookup zones, and you'll see that everything that is on the DNS database over on DC1 has been replicated over here. Now the reason that happens is because this is a Active Directory integrated database. You can go here, let's see, we can go over here to our zone. I can right click, I can go to properties, and it'll tell you that this is an Active Directory integrated zone. Now you can also change it here. You can change it to a primary or a secondary, but there's no need. So as long as these machines are using Active Directory integrated DNS zones, whatever change you make on one server will automatically be replicated to any of the other domain controllers in your network that are hosting a DNS server. Now the next thing we need to do is configure DHCP failover in the event that DC1, which is our current DHCP server, goes down. So I'm going to go over here to all servers. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click add servers, and I'm going to type in DC1. I'm going to say find now. It finds it. I'm going to select it and move it on over to the next window. And from there I'll say OK, and now DC1 appears up inside of my all servers. Now once this has finished updating inside of this server manager on DC3, I can right click on here and I can get all of these different roles that are currently installed on DC1 and have access to them. So currently I want to configure DHCP failover. So I'm going to go ahead and click on DHCP Manager on DC1. Go ahead and expand this. I'm going to go ahead and expand the name of my server. Right here on my IP version 4 scope, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say configure failover. That begins the failover wizard. Now currently it only knows about one scope that is currently running on this machine. That's all it's concerned with, so I'm going to say next. Now a partner server is going to be DC3, so I'm going to have to add the server, and I'm going to type it in here. I'm going to browse on over. I'm going to type in DC3, say OK to that, say OK to that, and say next. Now here we can do the load balancing, or I can do hot standby. I'm going to go ahead and configure DC3 to be a hot standby in case my DC1 goes down. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 50%. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 5 minutes, or bump it down to 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and give it a secret. I'm going to leave everything else as the default, and I'm going to click next. I'm going to go ahead and click finish. And then it tells me on this screen here that the configure for the failover was successful. I'll close that. Now over on my DC3, I have DHCP standing by as a hot standby or failover in case of DC1 going down unexpectedly I'll still have DHCP, I'll still have DNS, and I'll have an Active Directory domain controller to take the DC1's place. So in this short video presentation, you got to see how we bring up a replica domain controller and we configure it for redundancy and mitigate any possibility of not having critical services present on our network in the event that our forest route does go down. So we have mitigated DNS, and we have mitigated DHCP, and we have mitigated Active Directory as not being available in the event that we have a catastrophic failure with DC1. And so that's going to conclude this short video presentation on how we go about mitigating our network for redundancy in the event that we lose our forest route domain controller. So if you have any questions or you have any concerns about any of the information that was shown to you in this short video presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video.